Hey guys, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a book review on the book I just finished, This Summer Will Be Different by Carley Fortune. I actually didn't just finish this. I finished this last week. But guys, last week we started homeschool with my son and my week was just so busy. We did homeschool, we had dentist appointments, we did a yard sale and planned it through the week. So I was so busy and I've been meaning to make this review all week, pretty much all week. I can't remember what night I actually finished this. I love to do book reviews the very following day, so it's just all really fresh in my head. But I did something a little different this time and I jotted down a lot of my favorite parts of this book when I was reading it this time. So like, it's not all of my favorite parts, but a lot of them. So we are going to jump into that. But I wanted to say too, we've got Sky hanging out with us normally, like always. She's normally always behind me. And I have a clothes basket back here, so just ignore I'm doing laundry. I just got out of the shower too, and my hair is really wet. So we are just going with it because my one son is sleeping and I really need to make this video. So I wanted to show you guys too my new earrings that my mom got me. We went together to see the It Ends With Us movie. We both have read the book and oh my gosh, I love It Ends With Us. I feel like there's some things in the book that I feel like really connect to me as a person and in my life. And when I saw Colleen Hoover had an It Ends With Us collection of jewelry paired, I can't remember what the jewelry company was. I can't remember what it was called, but she did a collection with the jewelry company and she had some necklaces and some rings. I really wanted one of her rings that had Atlas's heart that he made for Lily, but they were sold out. They were also sold out of the necklace, but I don't wear a lot of necklaces. These were the next thing that I wanted with the ring. And my mom was able to get these for me and surprise them to me. Or surprise me with them. Sorry, I feel like I can't talk today. So I was so excited to get them and I've been wearing them all the time. So I wanted to wear them in this video and show you guys. So anyways, guys, we are going to jump into this book. If you have not read This Summer Will Be Different, please click away. We are going to do a relaxing chat about this book like we're in a book club. So we are going to dive in. So I don't want to spoil it for you if you want to read this. And also, Carley Fortune was so sweet in the back to put us, where were they? Some discussion questions. So I thought we could kind of go through these this time instead of some on my phone, but I want to talk about all the topics too, like all my favorite parts. So let's jump in. So if you've not read the book, click away. If you have and you want to chat about it, please stay. Okay, guys, so I cannot tell you enough how much I loved this book. I loved it. If I could give this 100 out of 10, that's what I would give it. 5 stars is not enough. 10 out of 10 is not enough. I loved this book with every part of me. So this was my first Carley Fortune book. I know she has, I think, like Meet Me at the Lake. Another one that's a summer book. I can't remember. I think it's called Every Summer After. This one I saw at Costco on the table. I'm not sure if this is her new book this year or if this book came out last year, but this was my first book by her. I loved this book. I literally knew it probably 25% in that I was going to have a book hangover from this book. I currently have another Emily Henry book that I am starting, but I've had a super busy week and I was so in love with these characters. I was having a hard time starting my next book. So I just loved it. So basically this book starts out, like when it starts, the very first chapter, it grabbed me. It starts 5 years ago, back when Lucy was first going to Prince Edward Island. The whole book takes place pretty much in Prince Edward Island, but they also go to Toronto, where Lucy and her best friend Bridget live. They are going to Prince Edward Island where Bridget, her friend, is from, and it's Lucy's first time visiting there. Prince Edward Island is on the northeast coast. I did not know about Prince Edward Island in Canada. Now I want to go there. I want to go to the island so bad. So anyways, Bridget gets held up. Her flight is late. So Lucy gets to Prince Edward Island first, and her parents, I think Bridget's parents are out of town. I can't remember where it says they are. I think they're out of town. So she's going to go to the house, get the key that's out back in this little ceramic frog that Bridget tells her. And she's going to stay the night, and she knows that she's going to meet Bridget's brother Felix, but everyone calls him, I think she doesn't realize it's him at first because they call him Wolf. It was like his childhood nickname that he got when he was a baby. So everyone refers to him as Wolf. So I think that's why Lucy, when she first meets Felix, doesn't put two and two together. So she goes to this restaurant. She's going to eat oysters. She immediately connects with this guy that's working the oyster bar, that's shucking all the oysters. She goes home with him, ends up finding out the next morning that it's her best friend's brother, that it's Felix, Bridget's brother. So all of that's in the first chapter, and they're putting two and two together. She's on the back deck. She sees the frog. He's putting it together then. And they're like, oh my gosh, like they had this connection, but they both know that they want to leave it there. That's what it was, and move on from it. Because Bridget gave Lucy, I think it was 3 rules when they were going to the island. One was like, leave the city behind. I can't remember. I feel like it was like, eat only seafood. I don't know. It was like 3 different rules. This is why I wish I would have done it directly after, so I remembered all of the key details. But the last rule, she said, don't fall in love with my brother. So she's like, I can't tell Bridget this was like a freak thing. So it starts to kind of skip back and forth from present time to past time. It starts off past time 5 summers ago when she's first meeting Bridget's family. So I think that's cool that it kind of flops back and forth. I think when the book is over and completed, it's 6 or 7 years worth of time because it skips around. It tells you about the future. So I loved kind of how it did that. So I think first things first, let's talk about the characters a little bit and who was our favorite character. So I loved Lucy's character. She was so close to her aunt. She just seemed like this super level-headed. That's another thing I want to say too. One thing that drew me into this book so much that I just loved, I felt like all of the characters were just really healthy, and all of the characters were just really good people. Like there wasn't anybody in the book that you felt like was a really bad person. So I loved that. But this book will make you want to reach through the book and shake the characters too, just to talk about their feelings. So Felix, I loved his character. He was so kind of mysterious, but also really loving. Like you could tell he was kind of a guarded person, but he was he would have been a good boyfriend. He was this really sweet guy, really family oriented. Him and his sister had a great relationship. Then you read about his friend Zach some, and how Zach always had a crush on Bridget. There was a point of the book where when it flops to present time, and Bridget is supposed to be getting married, and she goes back to the island and she calls Lucy and she wants Lucy to come back to the island, and you feel like Bridget and her fiance are going to split ways and she's not going to get married, like she's getting cold feet. There was a part of the book that I was wondering if Zach and Bridget were together, because it talks about Zach flirting with Bridget and always having a crush on Bridget. So I kind of wondered that, but you don't totally dive into Zach's character a ton, but he seems like a good friend, and he was a good friend to Felix. I loved Lucy's character. She was just so healthy, such a good friend. She was just so good for Felix. She was figuring herself out, because I feel like she was a people pleaser and was battling that, figuring out what was her own dreams, separate from her aunts, separate from her parents. I loved Lucy. I loved Bridget. She was just a fireball. She was just spoke her mind. She was witty. She was smart. She had a really great job. She was really level-headed. other than Lucy, like Lucy was level-headed, but Lucy just kind of didn't know her way yet, where Bridget was very like type A, like this is what I'm going to do, like problem solving. And she really had her life together and knew exactly what she wanted to do with it, which was so surprising when she calls Lucy and says she's going to skip her dress try on when she's supposed to be picking up her wedding dress. And because it was just so out of character, because Bridget was always like doing the same thing, arriving early. She was very predictable and reliable. So it was very different. So I loved the characters because they were all so dynamic. The author really did a great job, I feel like, building the characters with the book. Like the book I just got done reading before This Summer Will Be Different, it took place in the span of a 10-year time. And I feel like they did not build the characters as well in that book. So for this book, skipping around from present time to past time, like when it first started, it was 5 summers ago, then it was 4 summers ago, then it was 3 summers ago. And it keeps going back to talk about the build up of Felix and Lucy's relationship. I thought Carly did a really good job forming the characters and making you fall in love with them very quick. So I absolutely loved the characters. So I know I'm going to miss so much, but I pulled out my little list and I just wanted to talk about some of my favorite parts of the book. One, I have to say, when I read Emily Henry's book, Happy Place, I literally had told my husband that this book a little bit reminded me of Happy Place, because in Happy Place, the Emily Henry builds the area in Maine that they're at in that book so beautifully. Like it's almost like you're there, like you can see it when you're reading it. Carly Fortune built Prince Edward Island in the most beautiful way also. It was one of those things, I've never been to Canada. I did not realize every year I always share that famous quote from the Anne of Green Gables books. I'm so glad, or I'm so thankful I live in a world where there are Octobers. I did not realize that those books were based on Prince Edward Island. That was such a neat thing, like experiencing. It seemed like that island really experienced the seasons, which is really different than a lot of beaches in the South. She just built this place like to the point you almost felt like you could smell the blankets that she would talk about, them having these like wool blankets in this cedar chest. And like it was just almost to the point like you could smell it and like be there. She was just so descriptive. It made me want to go to the island. It made me feel like I could just picture everything she was talking about so well. So I absolutely loved how she wrote this book. So that was kind of talking about, because one thing I had talked about was the Anne of Green Gables thing. They refer to those books and the author of those books a lot in this book. Like her home place is there. They go and visit it. So that's referred to a lot, which I thought was cool. Also, I love, you know, the Taylor Swift song that when she's talking about invisible strings, and I've always heard that term of how there's invisible strings sometimes connecting you to somebody and you don't realize it until you connect. I feel like my husband and I had situations like that where before we were met, we were in similar areas and had not met each other yet, and how it feels like there are these invisible strings kind of connecting you to somebody in your life that you don't know yet. So I feel like Bridget and Felix had these like invisible strings drawing them together, like the way they met, then how they figure out, you know, they're going to be spending all these summers together because her best friend is his brother, and just how it keeps connecting, like how they connect when he comes back to Toronto. This was another thing I wanted to talk about. One time Felix, he's in a relationship with a different girl and she's in a relationship with a guy. And he comes to Toronto to visit Bridget and he sees Lucy, and they end up like going out to dinner or getting a coffee or something together. And she's telling him about how one day she wants to have like a flower farm, like where people can come and pick flowers and different things like that, instead of just working in her florist shop that she took over from her aunt. And he leaves and starts sending her from Prince Edward Island packages packets of seeds. And he doesn't even attach like letters with it. She just knows it's him, and he sends them like once a month or something like that. And she starts sending him books. And even one time she sent him the Emily Henry book, Happy Place, which is funny because I was telling you guys the books kind of reminded me of each other in the way they built the scene and the characters and just the friend dynamic a little bit. So I thought it was funny because she says like she thought it was funny to see Felix holding a bright pink book, and that book is bright pink. So I thought that was so funny that the book it was kind of reminding me of was in the story. So I loved that. So I love just how they were sending books and seeds back and forth, even without talking to each other. So I thought that was so cool. Oh, I loved too when it was like going to present time when Lucy got to the island and Bridget and Felix were there to pick her up. He remembered that she gets car sick, and he used to keep snacks in his car for her when she would get sick. He would keep like granola bars. I thought that was the sweetest thing, and I just wanted to talk about that because he was such a reserved character. Like you didn't totally know where he was at all the time. So him saving granola bars for her, you just like, it would just show you these little like lights into Felix where you would really kind of see his personality and how caring he was. Oh, one part I loved when they went to the oyster shucking competition. Yeah, hold on one second, honey. You guys are probably gonna hear my son because he's running around. He ends up, they're like preparing for his oyster shucking competition. His ex-girlfriend's family is really big into that. His ex-girlfriend's one of the judges. So you're kind of a little concerned that Felix is going to connect back with well, it wasn't just his ex-girlfriend. They were engaged. So his ex-fiance. And then he comes over to to Lucy after one point and kisses her. So I think he like kissed her cheek or something. It was or her forehead. It was like something very like special and sweet. And it immediately had Bridget, like the sister, like what's going on? And so I just thought that was so cute. Like him kind of first showing his public affection for her. And then let's see, I have one more thing. Okay, one thing I hate in books when it's building up to the characters being together and they literally put them together in like the last couple pages and then the book ends and it just drops off. I hate that because I want to see a little bit of their life together. So I was really thankful that during Bridget's wedding, like leading up to that, her and Felix were like together. What then Felix realizes when Lucy says she wants to move back to the island because she's not happy at the flower shop, he realizes that it's not a good situation to be with Lucy right now until she finds herself and figures out what she wants to do. So he kind of tells her that he wants her to figure it out. And like like you hope he's going to be there waiting, and they start like FaceTiming each other and cooking over the phone and talking on the phone. And Lucy has like a year or a while figuring out. Sorry, guys. My son was hollering for me, but he gives her like that much needed time to figure out. I don't know if it was a couple months, almost a year, to like figure out what she wanted to do, because he felt, I think, like if he brought her home, she could end up resenting him if it wasn't the decision she wanted to make, and if she was just kind of making a decision based on her feelings at that time to leave Toronto and move to Prince Edward Island. So the thing though that I loved, even when they were kind of apart in that time, that they weren't really dating, but they were both kind of wanting and like holding off for each other, I love that they you got to see them happy in the end. Like it didn't just drop you off. Like you got to see them get to these really healthy positions until the point they're ready for a relationship together. Even then, it didn't rush them getting married. They weren't married or anything by the end of the book. They had built their dream house and started Lucy's like flower farm. But I just loved just watching the characters finally get to fall in love with each other and be together. Because like I said, the book I had just read before this book, the characters got together and decided to be together in the last page of the book. Like it was literally the last page and then it ended. So I was so glad you got to see them get to this spot where you knew Lucy was in a good headspace, Felix was in a good headspace, and they got to be together. So I loved that. I hope that sometimes I feel like when I do these book reviews, I'm kind of all over the place because I want to talk about so many points and then one point brings me to another. So please tell me in the comments if you've read this book and what was your favorite parts. I wanted to tell you just how much I loved the characters, where the story took place, how it happened. I love that Felix and his friend Zach built these beautiful cabins and how neat that was. And it was just seemed really fitting for Felix. So I thought we would go through a couple of the discussion questions that were in the back of the book. This says, what's your most memorable vacation and why? I would say I want to talk about my vacation this past year with my family. I went on a vacation with my two sons, my husband, my grandma, my mom, and my stepdad. And we went to Myrtle Beach. I love Myrtle Beach because it's so like nostalgic for my childhood. I used to always go there with my parents. And it was right at the beginning of my reading journey, and I was reading It Ends With Us. And I just remember being so moved from that book and just having the best family time with my family and my kids, and both my boys being a little bit like my son was about to turn 2. My older son is 5. So just them being older at the beach and seeing our family dynamic, I just had the best vacation. So what is your guys' best memorable vacation? Next question, Lucy feels a sense of belonging when she's on Prince Edward Island. Have you ever traveled to a place that feels like home? I would maybe once again say like, Myrtle Beach has that nostalgic kind of homey feeling because it reminds me of childhood memories and my family. I also would say though, when I went to California when I was younger, we went to San Francisco and I could see myself at a place like that because it had a lot of things that I liked. I loved San Francisco. I would like to go spend a lot more time there. So I wouldn't say it felt like home because I was only there for a weekend, like a short time, but I would like to spend more time there and I could see somewhere like that feeling like home. Or like an island, like Prince Edward Island, like that would be so cool. So yeah, I would probably again say like Myrtle Beach because it just reminds me of childhood memories. If you were in Lucy's shoes, would you have told Bridget that Lucy had slept with Felix that first time? So if I was in Lucy's shoes, if I was Lucy, I would have felt better to tell her immediately because I feel like it was kind of interesting keeping that secret from her because that's another part I wanted to talk about. This book was more than just a love story. It was about a friendship between two friends and how important your friendships are in your life, that your friends become like family, even so more than some of your actual family. So the relationship that Lucy and Bridget had, I found it kind of interesting that she didn't tell Bridget. I know she didn't want to upset her because it was one of her rules to not fall in love with her brother, and Bridget had been best friends with Felix's ex-fiance and that broke up their friendship also. So I get why she was nervous to talk about it, but I always think it's best to talk about that stuff right away instead of holding it off. So the next one, if not, is there a point where you think Lucy should have fessed up? I do. I think there was multiple times where Bridget could sense something off, like sense she was hiding something. And I do think she had some opportunities to fess up. I definitely think she should have before he started like at the oyster competition, kind of trying to show like public affection. Like I definitely think she should have at some point fessed up. So next, who do you think caught feelings first, Felix or Lucy? What do you think that moment was for each of them? So that's an interesting question. I really think that they both kind of had kind of caught feelings immediately because she was saying as soon as they looked at each other in the restaurant, there was like electricity. Like both of them were really into each other when they were talking. So I think they were really into each other then. But I think maybe I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think about all of the summers because it would skip around. I think Lucy's, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like a specific time in the book where I think they could have really connected. I think that Felix was really realizing how in love with Lucy, that it was kind of more than a like, when Lucy's aunt passed away and she came to stay in his cabins. I think he was really realizing then, like, this has developed way further from just like being like liking somebody or being attracted to somebody to like Felix was starting to fall in love with Lucy. I think Lucy was the same way. I think maybe too when they had met each other in Toronto before Lucy's aunt passed and they started sending the books and the seeds. I think then they were realizing too how being away from the island and just being one-on-one as friends, how much they had in common, how easy the conversation was. So I think it wasn't necessarily like a one specific time. I think they realized that from jump. I think it was just building that relationship. I wouldn't say it was really one specific point, but immediately when they met, I think that there was sparks. So next question, Bridget and Lucy's friendship is tested as they grow into their adult lives. Do you think it's possible to maintain the same depth of friendship as we get older? So yes, I do think it's possible. I have a best friend that I have had since first grade. Hi. Guys, Hayden wanted to say hi. Okay, go play for a second. So anyways, what I was saying, I do think that it is possible to maintain your friendships like that when you get older, but I think that it's very important. Like me and my friend, we've had babies around the same time, gotten married around the same time. So we've always had that to connect on too. But we always try to like stay, like we chat on the phone a lot, we text a lot, we share a lot of our personal lives with each other. I think where you can start to really distance as a friend and kind of like start to fade away is when you stop telling each other the little details of your life. When you stop texting, when you stop calling, when you stop, just talking about your day or these little tasks or things that you have on your mind because you feel not as close, or maybe you're not chatting as much, so you feel like it's this like insignificant detail to share with the other person, so you stop sharing. I think that's when your friendships can fade. And then one day it's been a year down the road and you're like, I feel like this person doesn't know things that are going on in my life currently, and that can be really hurtful. So I think that you can maintain like Bridget in the book was getting married and having a baby. Lucy wasn't at those steps yet, and that's totally okay. That has nothing to do with the friendship fading, but it's when you start to not include that friend. So that's when I think the friendship can fade. So 3 more questions, guys. Aunt Stacy advises Lucy to live her life for herself and no one else. Do you agree with this advice? Why or why not? Yes, I do agree that you need to live your life for yourself. Now, when you have kids and you have a husband and stuff, you want to live your life to be the best person you can be too for those people. But when it comes to your job, what makes you happy, activities, being healthy, like exercising, different things like that, you have to live your life for yourself. If you live your life for everybody else around you, one day you are going to feel a lot of hurt from that, a lot of resentment, wanting to go back and change things. I feel like you're not going to find yourself as much as if you live your life for you. So you always need, if there's a job that you don't like, but you're keeping it because of what other people will think, or you're going to school for something because you think your parents want you to be this, or like, immediately no, because you're never going to love it like you should if you're doing it for other people. If you're getting married to somebody because you think it's the right thing to do to please everybody else, don't do it, because that's the wrong thing to do. Don't have babies when you're not ready to. Have babies when yourself, not what society or when your family members ask you. Always live for you. Change your job title, change your location where you live. Do whatever you need to do to live for you. Okay, next question. After Bridget's wedding, Felix and Lucy decide that it's the right time for them to begin a relation. Oh, that it's not, sorry, the right time for them to begin a relationship. What did you make of this choice? So this was about one of the things I had wrote down that I appreciated their healthy conversation during this. Yes, it made me sad because Lucy and Felix had just decided to be together, finally told each other how much they meant to each other. And then it's kind of like, wait a second, I don't think we're ready for this. So it was kind of sad and a bummer because I wanted them to just be together. But I appreciate that Felix realized Lucy was not in the best headspace and was not fully living her life for her. And she needed to figure that out before committing to him and moving away and making these big life changes if she hadn't found herself yet. So I actually think it's one of those things that's like beyond your time, beyond your years, very healthy, a very good mindset. So I actually liked that, even though I hated they weren't together. But like I said, I loved that even during that time, they were figuring that out. They were like cooking over FaceTime. What are you doing, buddy? They were like cooking over FaceTime and still sending each other like seeds and books. And I loved that. So they were still like staying in contact. Last question. What's your relationship to Anne of Green Gables, if any? Okay, so I was telling you guys, I don't really have one, and now that's something that I want to have after reading this. I want to learn more about Anne of Green Gables. I did not realize it took place on Prince Edward Island, but I am familiar with her quote about Octobers, and October is my favorite month of the year. It's when I had my older son. I love October, and I always have. So this book wants me to I want to explore that more. So guys, if I could recommend any end of summer book leading into fall, if you are wanting an end of summer book, because this starts to talk about the end of summer and the fall and being at Prince Edward Island around Thanksgiving, which in Canada, I think takes place in October. So it's very fall. This is the perfect book to wrap up your summer. If you're wanting one last good summer read that puts you at that beach, this is it. This will not disappoint you. This is one of the best books I have ever read in my life. This will forever be a favorite. I will never forget these characters. I think about this book often. I want to go here now on vacation. Please pick up this book. So guys, that's all today. This is a super long one because this book deserved it. I hope it's not all over the place. I get kind of distracted, and it's a lot to talk about because it goes back and forth for like about a 6 to 7 year period. So it's a lot of things to touch. But thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know if you've read this book in the comments, and thank you guys so much for being here.